Good evening. How are you? Leslie Plazz here, author of The Audacious Adventures of Zazoo Plazz, part-time superhero, full-time mom. Here for Halloween edition of the Zazoo Plazz Show, October 25th, 2020. I got my friend here, my jack-o'-lantern friends. And question for today's show that I'm going to address is what somebody on the throwback page posed this question today, and it piqued my curiosity. I really started to think about it. She said, what over the course of your life has shocked you the most? And that's a good question for Halloween. Especially this Halloween with all the astrological action, with the full moon and all these sudden things. There's a lot of that in Zazoo Plazz. There's a whole chapter on electricity. That's what you think of when you first think of shock, right? That's one of the things I think of, being married to an electrical engineer. And, just thinking about Benjamin Franklin, right, with his kite, and the lightning hit it, and the key, and discovering electricity. So shock can be a good thing, or a bad thing. I think I had an aunt who was talking on the phone once during a thunderstorm, and she got shocked because the lightning came through the phone and went into her ear, I guess. There's shock like that. And then there was this game when I was growing up in my boys called Operation, where there was this body, this guy you had to operate on, and there were all these little openings, and you had to take your little scalpel, and you used to have to try to put certain, like, organs and bones and body parts through the little openings. And if your little scalpel hit the metal sides of the game, then it would go, eh. And if you got too many of those, then you get thrown out of the game. It was a real shock. So I started thinking about it, and I realized I probably have spent more of my life trying to shock other people than I have been shocked personally by things, because I guess I just like throwing people off sometimes when they think that they know who they're dealing with, and then they find out, because I'm a pretty steady person. And then when things get boring, so this is where I started to break it down. Okay. Having determined that I am in fact a person who is pretty steady, especially in a crisis. I'm pretty good. And I don't know if it's all my Sagittarius that, maybe I've had all these other lifetimes and done all this stuff, and it's just, I've spent my whole life looking for external things that scare me. I used to listen to Alfred Hitchcock records in the dark, turn all the lights off, try to get that adrenaline rush, from otherworldly things that other people don't know about. I've been on a quest for that my whole life, and that's what Zazoo is about. Zazoo is that part of me, that little girl who used to like to turn lights on or off on people, just playful things. Drop in on people when you could do that, Drop in on my mom and announce that I was getting married, that I got engaged. And she was, poor mom, had to grip the stair railing because she knocked her off her feet for a minute. My earth sign parents spent much of their life trying to, wait, let me sit down. Whenever I would come in. It's pretty much how I arrived in the world too, in that kind of fashion. So anyway, I deviate. I've kind of broken it down a little bit. There's different. Okay, there's synonyms for shock. That's Jack, my son, my youngest son. The oldest one came home for the weekend and tried on some contact lenses and they didn't fit. So now he has to go back to school and now he's got to come home. He'll be home in a month anyway for like 2 months. But so anyway, there's shock. Okay, there's surprise, right? Surprise is like when you go into a haunted house, you know, one of those staged haunted houses and like, you know, you see a buffet table and you go to take something and this, you know, head pops up and out of the buffet table or a hand or something. Those are good. Or like when you're on a hayride and some zombies start chasing after you. That's kind of a surprise, right? Because you're going along and you're not expecting it and ooh, something pops out of it. But then you recover and, you know, or like a surprise party. I love surprise parties. It's kind of more stressful to throw one, especially for somebody who doesn't like surprises. That's not really fun. But I've always liked surprise parties. I've always been in a state of just perpetual readiness to be surprised. I guess I always expect that things out there are going to be unexpected, you know, because I think the real fascination comes with looking within yourself, right? Now that can be scary. But all this stuff out there, you got to assume stuff's going to happen, fall apart, die, change, you know? That's part of shock. Scared, all right, there's surprise, then there's scared, which is based on fear, you know? Like a scary movie, Halloween, or, you know, somebody with an axe. Somebody, I mean, where you know it's fake, you know, that could be scared. Or scared could be being on top of a high building and looking down. That can be scary. Even though you're safe, you know you're safe, but you have that innate fear. And sometimes it's good, it keeps you safe, you know. But then sometimes scared isn't good. Like if you're scared to, you know, speak in public, or you're scared to, you know, because you imagine all these things. You know, I talk about in my book how I get up and speak in front of in a class, communications class, and you know how really it's not other people's reaction to us that we fear. It's you know, something within us that says you're not good enough. You're not going to be interesting. So you've got to learn to ignore those voices, right? So scared can just be like, okay, this is somewhere I'm way too comfortable and I really need to shake it up a little. So scared can be good. And shock, though, shock is above scared. Shock is like, it's like something that throws you, and it can be transformative, you know. So shock is not always a bad thing. Like, you know, falling off your bike and breaking your arm, or, you know, which leads to something good like getting rid of your carpal tunnel or something. Shock can be...
Leslie? Leslie?
Yes!
It's on.
Okay. shock can be your husband while you're doing a video telling you that 60 Minutes is on because he wants to watch politics. Shock could be something that throws you and then turns your life around in ways you couldn't have imagined. Like someone dying and leaving you $1 million. Or anything like that. A shock is something that happens very suddenly often. And it's our judgment of those things that makes that moment so transformative. The more we're in touch with ourselves, I think, the less we're shocked because we know ourselves and we're like, oh yeah, like I saw that happen. You know, you could see it happening. Very often we ignore the warning signs. It's like being on a road, right? And it's a dark and stormy night, and there's a haunted house above, you know, down the road, and there's a steep drop off, and you're like, oh, you're shocked when like a dead body comes, falling out somewhere, and you're like, really? Did you not see the cobwebs and the haunted house and the dead shrubs and the thing? Really? Is this shocking? Because you're on a dark, right? If you were watching a movie and the character goes down into the dark basement, you're like, stupid, they always go in the basement. I mean, really? But the person in the movie is like, I'm going to go down in the basement and see where Mom went. You know. Okay, so sometimes a shock, like if you're playing Operation, it gets you thrown out of the game, right? You think, oh, the game is over, that's kind of, but there's always another game. And it's just a game, right? Or a shock can alert you to something that needs changing, in which case you are more completely in the game than you've ever been. You hear about these people who, something happens to them, and they get some kind of news, and they say, I'm more fully alive now because I realize how precious life is, right? Those people, it had a transformative effect. Sometimes it could be a little thing sent to test you, to see if you're ready for a bigger thing. Like, when was it? Back in 99, my husband and I were out for a little walk right near our house, and these two little black and white kitties followed us home. And it was before we had the kids. And they just followed us. And so, we looked around and nobody had lost any cats or anything. So we took them to the vet. And we ended up keeping them. And so there I am with the girl cat. They were brother and sister. This little tiny thing, 6 months. There I am with the girl. Or that might have been the boy, I forget. We called them Pepe and Penelope, after the Pepe Le Pew and Penelope of the cartoons. There I am. See, I still have the same jack-o'-lanterns there on the mantle. So, anyway. So, what happened was, after we found the cats, the next year we ended up having our first son. So I kind of looked at it as something a bit of a little shock, because when we went out for that walk, we didn't expect we were going to have cats follow us home. It was just a little pleasant surprise that ended up leading to a bigger surprise, which was something really good. So sometimes it's just a test, a shock, like a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is just a test. In most cases, that's what it is, something to wake you up. So, if we kind of assume that anything can happen at any time, and focus on the joy, the light that glows within all the time. It's always there, always ready to surprise us with something. Then things never get boring. When you look at what happens without is sometimes the message to us to go within, because something is waiting for us, waiting in the dark to be found. Like these things right here. So, Zazoo Plazz, wishing you happy Halloween. Be safe,